Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast, where we combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Emily Sander. Emily is an executive coach and author who has spent more than 15 years in the business world, but when she realized that her favorite role was mentoring leaders, she decided to pursue coaching. As a C-Suite Executive and ICF-Certified coach, she combines her experience and proven insight with keen ability to understand each client's unique personality and situation. Emily is also the author of the book, Hacking Executive Leadership. So please welcome to the show, Emily Sander. Emily, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Hi, Bob. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, why don't we go right into it and let's tell people about you. How did you get to where you are today? I always like the background stories.
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of the lightning round version. But I grew up in Seattle, so Amazon and Microsoft were, of course, the big companies there. So I did stints early in my career at both. I was one of the testers for the very first version of the Kindle device. So before anyone knew what an e-reader was, it was secret, and we kept it secret until Christmas time. And then I got to tell everyone, here's this new thing that's going to change the world, and I worked on it. So did Amazon, Microsoft, had those big company experiences, and then had a series of small to medium business, leading teams, growing teams, managing client management teams internationally, scaling folks globally, and then reaching kind of VP, C-suite level and going from there. So, excuse me, I currently serve as chief of staff for a small digital marketing agency. And then, as you said, I'm an executive coach for business leaders all around the world.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you have that type of background and that experience, because it's kind of all over the place, which is interesting. A startup, you've got a testing team, and then establishing, into established companies. Do you think that the viewpoints from those type of different areas of business have helped you in what you do now?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Going through the early stages where it's your first team meeting, or, oh my goodness, I'm recruiting and hiring the first person and I don't know how to do that. I remember my first experience was literally walking from my CEO's office, and he had said, Emily, go create this client management team, go hire client managers in regions, so in Europe, in Asia Pacific, in the Americas, and you're going to stand up this new team. And I had no idea what I was doing. I had never interviewed anyone. I had never reviewed a resume. And I walked back to my office and I typed in Google how to hire someone in the UK. And that was my first round of recruiting and hiring. Thankfully, it went well, and I got a little lucky with some key hires, but that was the first one. So those first, and remembering how that feels helps with that. Having a whole bunch of challenging conversations with different colleagues or direct reports, or even your boss, are common threads. And then, making different decisions all along the way. So, oh my goodness, we have this client escalation, or oh my goodness, we have this really big strategic decision to make given the changes in the market. How are we going to adapt and adjust to this?
Right.
All across the board. My personal experience myself with that, and then also being around it in different iterations at different companies and different teams has really helped. I feel like I can relate to people's obstacles and challenges they're facing, and also the opportunities and good things and promotions and celebrations that happen as well.
Well, and that's a good thing, because it does help your perspective. And I think that's interesting. What we wanted to talk about today was that idea of your awareness, or your perception of your awareness, or what you are seeing. And I don't know why, but it's funny how quotes pop up, and I keep seeing that same one, that if you focus on good, and good things will happen to you, garbage in, garbage out, those types of scenarios. How do you help people to, if you go into an organization and you're helping to, I know sometimes there's a lot of that perspective of it's always been done that way in larger organizations. And how do you shift that perspective so that they can see the opportunities? They can see, how if you move a little quicker, how it's going to benefit them. It's not just, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to talk, cost analysis and so forth if you're doing hardware replacements and things like that. But the people don't really care about that. How does it affect the people, and how do you help with that?
Yeah, so I think, I've worked in rapid growth startup environments.
Right.
And
You're very familiar with that idea of run.
When I hear it's always been done that way, I almost have a red flag. So I'm sure there's scenarios where that's appropriate. And if something's working well and it's still relevant and applicable to the market and to your team, sure, keep doing it. But most of the time, it's better to adapt or at least question, hey, we have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Is that still the best answer? And if it is, great, keep doing it. If it's not, then be open and willing to change. And I think, a lot of us saw in 2020, we had to be pretty open to change more quickly than we probably all wanted. But yeah, I think it first starts with your mindset. Yeah. So, hey, do I have a closed mindset where it's these 10 steps over and over again, and I do nothing but these 10 steps? Or is it, let me look for the opportunities and let me look for the new ways of doing things? And it's kind of like saying, look for red cars.
Yeah.
And if you look for red cars, all of a sudden, like someone must have been manufacturing more red cars lately because I see them everywhere. But of course, that's not the case. You've just seen more of them. So if you have the intention or the intent to say, hey, is there a better way to optimize this process? Maybe we had those steps when it was more of a manual process, and we can automate some of those things today. Or, hey, maybe we had these steps because there was only one person doing it, and now we have more. And so it makes sense to distribute those across different teams, just for some quick examples. I think certainly being flexible and open to that within your internal company and within your internal team is key. And then also externally being very open and flexible to changes in the market or legislation or anything else that you're seeing externally.
And I think it's interesting as people do that in their work environment, it bleeds over into their personal life. So then, like you said, you'll start to notice more things when you drive home. You'll start to see different opportunities maybe you didn't see before because you were just focused on grumbling or whatever your attitude may have been.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, hey, there's a new way of doing this. What about that? I didn't notice that, that over there. I didn't notice that sign of that building. And I'll often tell people too, when we would be going into the office or when you're working, you can be pretty much guaranteed that stuff's going to happen. And your day is going to go, every which way if you let it. But you've got to take time and refocus your mind to enjoy something. Go outside and see the green trees or the sunshine or, flower growing near the sidewalk, whatever it may be. See that piece of light that will enlighten you to go back in with more energy. Do you help people to shift their energy, if you will, with some of these perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on a few key things there. The first one is that concept of self-care. And a lot of people hear that and go, oh my gosh, that's so soft. And I don't have time to take care of myself. To which I go, okay, let's think about that for a second. So if you're a leader and you are the mechanism through which your leadership expresses itself, would it not make sense to take care of that? Would it not make sense to make sure that you're in a best position to make tough decisions about the company, make tough decisions about personnel? One of the things I talk about in my book, Hacking Executive Leadership, is imagine someone who's gotten 4 hours of sleep every night for a month, and they've been in their office, chugging coffee, Red Bull. They haven't seen the light of day. All they've looked at is email and phone, and they have a really important decision that's going to affect you and your family and your livelihood. How would you feel about that?
Yeah. Tell them to go get a nap and get a rest.
Yeah. So to your point, I think building in those ways and building in those habits of what gives you energy. So you can kind of look throughout your day or your week, literally go through your calendar and say, what activities or what events give me energy and pump me up, and what drains me of energy,
Right.
and make sure that you're balancing that out. And sometimes just stepping away and making sure you do a hobby or whatever you think is fun outside of work is really good for you. And it's good for you in two ways. One, it's restful to you and you're doing something else. But two, your subconscious will still be working on the work problems, and you might come up with a very creative solution by not thinking about it, by taking your mind and placing it somewhere else. I come up with some of the best ideas I have in the gym when I'm deadlifting. It's like, oh my gosh, I now know the answer to that problem.
Yeah.
Let me go back and do that.
The extra oxygen to the brain really helps, you know.
And breathing is good.
Yeah.
Breathing is good at any time.
And it's always interesting. People take better care of their car than they do themselves sometimes. And it's like, we don't run our engine without oil. Why would we do that to ourselves? I mean, you bring up a great point. Self-care, you got to take care of yourself. It's your vehicle through this journey we call life. And we got to take care of that to do those best transactions we can with it.
Yeah, and the best description I've heard of that is protect the asset, and the asset is you. So protect the asset and take care of it. If you think of a singer and their voice is their kind of instrument, it wouldn't make sense if they were going and screaming all day long before a concert, or going and drinking and not resting before a concert. That's not how you would take care of your asset. So
I mean, the Stones had it wrong.
Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne took a different track and he did okay, but for the rest of us, protect the asset.
Well, and that's, as a coach, it's interesting because you get a chance to see alternatives for people. And how do you get those integrated into their daily, not only their daily lives, but when in corporate organizations, sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. How do you help integrate some of those ideas and those alternative things that they may do into their daily habits or their work environments?
Yeah, there's some different ones that work well for most people. It's different for everyone, of course, because they're motivated by different things. But for most C-level executives, they are run by their calendar. So if it's in their calendar, they have a higher likelihood of doing it. So I would schedule time and block out time to go do the things you need to do, because often they'll wake up in the morning and before they even jump out of bed, they open their phone and say, what do I have today? So if you have things built in and blocked off, that is what you're doing for that time slot. And we all have emergencies come up and life happens, so you might move some around, but they're in your calendar and they're marked down. Another good one is if you batch a habit with another one. So most of us, hopefully all of us, brush our teeth at least twice a day. And so if you even match a habit or pair a habit with that, such as, let me just take a minute to be present right now. So I'm brushing my teeth. Let me just pay attention to, 3 things that are in the room, and really pay attention to that, because that kind of grounds me for the day and gets me into the present moment. So any routine that you already have built up or built in, attach something to that, because that's pretty easy for you to remember to do.
Interesting, because as you mentioned that, it's people always say, well, I never have time for exercise. Well, you brought up brushing your teeth. There's a minute right there. You could be doing something, stretches. You could, while you brush your teeth, I found myself, sometimes you do side crunches like this, it helps keep things aligned. But yeah, that's a good idea, batching things together, because especially in a corporate environment, there's so many things that you're doing, processes that could be done simultaneously or at similar times. A good way sometimes to get group activities, get people together, which you don't find too often today. Everybody's separate, but a way to get people together is to do some of those activities together and get it batched out. Interesting, very interesting. Now, how do you, one of the things that you talk about I guess in your book, it talks about the circle concept. If we could tell us a little bit about your book and tell us about some of those concepts in there.
Yeah, so 3 circles is one of my favorite ones. So we have a graph in the book, but think of 3 circles in a horizontal line. It's a math equation, but it's a simple one. Circle 1 plus circle 2 equals circle 3. So in life,
that.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, so can I. That's about it. So in circle 1, we'll drop life events. So an external event will happen. Let's say in business, you're in a team meeting and oh my goodness, Emily decides to blow up at everybody and start shouting and, causing a distraction in the team meeting. So that's the event in circle 1. And so you, as the leader running that meeting, go, okay, let me do a quick check. What is in circle 3? And circle 3 is the most favorable outcome. So, okay, what do I want to have happen in this situation? What's the best outcome here? And then you do a quick reverse engineer exercise and go, okay, so what do I need to do in circle 2? What do I need to say? How do I need to show up? What action do I need to take to try to get circle 3 to happen? So that's a really good framework and concept to keep in mind for things that come up right in the moment, like that one. It can also be used for planning purposes. So let's say you are going into that team meeting and you have 5 minutes beforehand or 10 minutes beforehand, and you say, this is our big kickoff meeting for this quarter. What do I want people to take away? What do I want the outcome to be for our team this quarter? And that's circle 3. Okay, so I have this team meeting coming up, that's circle 1. What do I need to do? What do I need to say? Or do I just need to listen in this team meeting in circle 2 to get to circle 3? So it's something that can be used for kind of quick, in the moment things, and then also kind of let me think about it. The reason I like that and I use it with many of my clients is it makes you think about what you want in the situation. A lot of times we're like reacting and oh my goodness,
right.
Knee-jerk reaction. It makes you have that quick like, oh, what do I want out of this situation? And that little extra space, that little extra pause for that is really helpful.
And that's a great point, that pause. Sometimes we forget to do that. Like you said, we're always running and reacting. Mm-hmm. We've got to take that time to say, what is going to be the situation or the event that I want out of this scenario? Great idea there. What are some other concepts? I like that one. I can handle 3 circles. So
yeah, I tried to keep it simple for people. Let's see. Another one is the art of the Swizzle, and that it doesn't necessarily sound like something that could be in a book called Hacking Executive Leadership, but this was something that a word I made up and blurted out one day. I was trying to explain something. It just kind of came out. Swizzle them together. We'll swizzle that together. And the easy way to understand swizzling is, imagine you have a PowerPoint deck you're putting together and you've had 3 similar presentations in the past. So you've got 3 decks to work from. Swizzling is taking the best concept or best elements and making something new. So you would take the best slides from deck 1, the best slides from deck 2, and from deck 3, and then you would swizzle them and combine the best together. You'd reformat them, make sure the content flows nicely, etc. And you'd have a brand new deck that's more useful and relevant to what you're going to use it for now. So that's the basic example. Take that concept and expand it. And the example that I use is, I was listening to a podcast with the boxer Floyd Mayweather, who's apparently the champion boxer. I know nothing about boxing, and you don't want to see me box. But they were asking him, what makes you the champion? What makes you the best? Is it your training protocol? Is it your diet? Is it, the quickness of your feet or whatever? And he finally said, what makes me the best is my adaptability and my ability to adapt opponent to opponent, round to round, and even punch to punch. And I heard that. I was like, oh my goodness. So again, not a boxer, but I can take that and swizzle it into business and say, how am I adapting to different situations? How am I adapting to different team meeting environments, different colleagues that I'm working with, different scenarios and situations that come up? because adaptability made him the best in his field. And I can probably take a lot of that and become the best in my field.
Well, and you bring up another great point there, because adaptability in any environment is going to help. Excuse me, is going to help you. You know, you look at it from the caveman times; they were adaptable. They outran the saber-tooth tigers or found caves that they could fit in, so they didn't get eaten. You take it to now, where okay, something happens, and you either do your 3 circles or you jump into adaptability to make sure you can adapt to a scenario that happened that you didn't even plan for. COVID-19. It's one where a lot of people, all of a sudden, remote workers, had to be done, and they had to be done quickly. And a lot of companies overcame that challenge, and they were adaptable enough to be able to do it. People understood that there was going to be some issues that came up, but yeah, being adaptable is a great idea for anything, because it also shows your flexibility as a person too. I mean, in life, things are going to happen. That's a guarantee.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, your podcast and having the short quotes, which I love, you can swizzle those too. So those are from philosophers and from sports personalities and politicians, etc. And you can take the spirit of that or one piece of that and say, I'm going to take that in and incorporate that into my life. And what you swizzle today and what's relevant for you today might be different from 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So it's a constant evolution of things that you can bring in and incorporate from different areas of your life and apply it to what's relevant now.
And that's the thing, we're always growing, or at least I hope we are, because if we're not growing, we're dying. We all are dying, but you know, we not grow while we're here, and that's a way to do that. So thanks for that reminder. I'll definitely keep those up and keep you know, swizzling those and adapting them.
Yeah, and I love when people use swizzle. I came up with the word, and then I'll use it, and my colleagues will start using it, and I'll hear people say like, yeah, we got to put the swizz on that one, or I think the swizzleage there was really good. And I even heard it in a board meeting from one of my CFOs, and I was like, oh my goodness, did she just say swizzle in a board meeting? So it's fantastic. But yeah, I love it.
Get some t-shirts made.
I will. That's a great idea, actually. I'm gonna write that down.
That's a fun idea, because it's a fun concept. You know, people enjoy that. And when you see people, you know, doing it a lot, you hand them a t-shirt. Hey, here you go.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, another thing that a lot of people talk about too, and I'm sure you see it as a coach, is the idea of awareness. Are C-level staff aware of not only what goes on with lower levels, but you know, they may be following trends or looking at higher level pictures? Is that awareness go both ways? You know, is it if you will, the worker being aware of what the C-level has to go through and everything they have to deal with, and vice versa? Do you see and help people with a lot of that?
Absolutely. You touched on it. It's really important both ways. So as a worker, as you say, if you're not getting the types of information or communication from the leadership team, you're going to sit there and be really uncertain. And you're also going to start making things up in your head. And as humans, we just do that. If we don't have information and we're curious about something or worried about something, we will start talking to other people and making the story up in our head if we don't have anything. So if you're a leader, I think being aware of that and then taking the right action to be transparent. So share the information that's going to be relevant and helpful to your folks. That's important. Now, apply judgment where if you're not sure of something, or if you don't want to overpromise something, or something isn't official and you can't announce it for whatever reason, there's those kinds of reasons that are valid. But you know, if you can share the information and be transparent, it's going to really help people stay focused on what you want them to stay focused on. And then I think if you are, you know, working your way up and are a worker, and you're like, oh my gosh, don't they, you know, them in leadership in their, you know, high castles and towers, don't they know that this is going on? And understand that, you know, they're in their role for a reason, and they're dealing with a whole bunch of different things. And what might be the most important and the biggest thing to you might not be on their radar in the same way. So if something really is important and you think, hey, like this needs to be done better, or there needs to be a change here, bring that up, in the most appropriate way for what it is, your manager or HR, or if there's an open door policy to go speak to someone, quote unquote, higher up, go do that and bring it to their attention. But also be aware that they're dealing with other things. I remember when I was a production reporting lead, so not the very entry level, but one up from that. And I sent an email to one of our EVPs, so executive vice presidents. And I wrote this email. I spent time on it, the research, the formatting, everything. And I sent it to him. I didn't get a reply for days and then weeks. And I finally walked in and was like, hey, did you get my email? And he said, no, I skipped it. And in my mind at the time, I was like, how can you skip an email? Because I had about 5 emails a day in my inbox. So I was like, how can you skip an email? And then, of course, as I got into different roles, I would miss emails and skip emails, not because I wanted to, just because it happens. And I was like, I probably should have given that guy a little bit of a break, but he didn't stop everything he was doing and read my
Right.
emails.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a great idea there too, that just understanding the two, if you will, realms. People are just busy doing what they do on a daily basis. And a good perspective, because you'll get 5 emails, they get a ton of emails, and they don't get a chance to read half of them, if that, so because they're always in meetings trying to do other things. And it's interesting that you mentioned open door policy. Do you see that a lot? Do you see that communication now, and previously being, if you will, redone and offered more?
So I see that talked about a lot, and then where it's actually done is probably a subset of that. But yes, most people in most companies will say they have an open door policy, and it's fantastic when you actually do, and someone can talk to you one-on-one or directly. And again, people are busy, so it might be, hey, can you schedule something on my calendar? Hey, how is Friday at 2 p.m.? Is that good for you? It might not be immediate, but having that access to just talk with people and just hear what's interesting to them, hear what's concerning them, is really big. And a lot of leaders have kind of windows in their weeks. So I have one client who has 2 hours blocked off on her schedule where she just has an open conference call, and anyone can jump on and ask her a question. And if no one's there, she'll do other work. But yeah, she has that, and people respond really well to that. I've been in companies where the CEO will stand up every quarter and do the leadership team will do a big presentation on what happened, and then at the end he will take live questions. And he will take any question, and it's not pre-submitted, it's live fire, and he gets some really, really tough questions. And it's kind of a joke in a game now, like, hey, who can make this guy dance? But he will stand up there and answer any question that comes up. So that's awesome too.
And that's a good idea, because in so many times they're in those big meetings, people are, after they state something, they give you kind of a vague answer because it's got to be generalized, but somebody wants more in-depth answer, and they may not, in those settings, they may not want to ask the question. So I love that idea of the open conference call, because that's where a lot of people, they're not out in public, if you will, asking the question, but then they can get right down, say, here's what I'm thinking about it. Here's the scenario I was talking about. Can you, talk about that further? And that's a great way to do it, is through that open conference call. It's open mic night with the CEO.
Yeah. And I will just emphasize again, a lot of people just want to be heard. You don't have to, quote unquote, solve their problem immediately. They're not looking for that most of the time. They're looking for, hey, I want you to know this information. And if I know that you know this because I just told you, I feel better. And then, of course, if you do action it, I feel even better. But just the first part goes a long way. Yeah,
definitely. And people are busy, both sides of the equation there. And that's a good way to let people know you're listening, when you can sit down and look at their eyes face to face. It's anymore with the technology is great. You're not smelling a person's cologne, but you're going to know, okay, they may have another question. And so you can follow up with them or have somebody call them, or, you can see that in somebody's face. So that's very appreciative with the technology we have today. It allows people to see the body reactions of certain things. So,
yeah. And I think one more thing that came up while you were talking that is important is, as leaders, depending on how large your organization is and how many levels of hierarchy, so to say, there are, sometimes it's really important as a CEO or a member of the executive team to hear what's happening day to day, on a call center, on phones. What are you hearing from clients? Because you are a little removed from that.
Yeah.
And you're hearing things at a strategic level from different partners or vendors or your board of directors, but you're not hearing the day-to-day stuff that your frontline folks are going through. So being really open to, I have assumptions about how this team is running, or I have assumptions about what our customers are saying, but these folks, these people are hearing it every single day. I need to close my mouth and listen to them. When they're coming to me with something important, I need to listen to them and take it in.
That's a great concept. Get the people that are the frontline people of the organization. And that could be the security guard at the front desk.
Yeah.
What's he seeing? What's he hearing? What are the grumbling complaints that people may be saying? He's going to hear them. Get a cup of coffee and sit down with the guy and talk and see what goes on. See, you'll learn a lot. And especially you mentioned call centers. You sit in a call center and listen to some of those calls. Bless those people, because that is not somewhere I want to sit. I'll tell you, they get, sometimes it's hard, that some of the scenarios they get, but definitely great concepts there for people to open up and realize the perspective that not only themselves might be going through, but others may be going through as well. So Emily, where can people find out more about you and your website and get a hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. Best place to contact me is nextlevel.coach. So just type in nextlevel, all one word, .coach, and you can connect with me there. And if you've liked some of the concepts you've heard about today with Swizzle and 3 circles and want more of that, you can find more in my book, Hacking Executive Leadership. And that's on Amazon and Audible and anywhere books are sold.
It is on Audible. All right. I'm getting my copy today. All right.
Yeah, people are busy, so pop in the Audible version. And
definitely. Oh, great. All right. Well, we'll make sure we have that information in those sites and links in those show notes as well, because this will be audio as well as video. So we'll get those out in the show notes and have those for everybody. But Emily, I wanted to thank you for your time today. Thank you for being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast. I really appreciate your insights and what you offer for people. It's fun, and I like the term swizzle. So I'm going to swizzle some of this together and have some great stuff.
I'll get some t-shirts going. You'll get the first one, Bob.
Hey, all right.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really love your podcast and what you're doing. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Emily. You have a great day.